In July 2021, the Myanmar military carried out a series of brutal massacres of civilians in Kani Township, an opposition stronghold in Sagaing district in central Myanmar. The killings were a collective punishment for attacks by militia groups demanding a return to democracy following a military coup in February that deposed a democratically elected government led by Aung San Suu Kyi. Eyewitnesses and survivors said that soldiers, some as young as 17, rounded up villagers before separating the men and killing them. Video footage and images from the incidents appear to show most of those killed were tortured first and buried in shallow graves. The largest killing took place in Een village, where at least 14 men were tortured or beaten to death and their bodies thrown in a forested gully. The witnesses in Een told the BBC that the men were tied up with ropes and beaten before they were killed. They said they begged the soldiers to spare their lives, but they did not care. They asked the women to do their last rites for their husbands. A man who managed to escape the killing said that soldiers inflicted horrifying abuse on the men for hours before they died. He said they were hit with stones and rifle butts and tortured all day. He said there was also a woman soldier among them. In nearby Zeban Dwin village, in late July, 12 mutilated bodies were found buried in shallow mass graves, including a small body, possibly a child, and the body of a disabled person. Some were mutilated. The body of a man in his 60s was found tied to a plum tree nearby. Footage of his corpse showed clear signs of torture. His family said that his son and grandchild had fled when the military entered the village, but he had stayed, believing his age would protect him from harm. The BBC spoke to 11 witnesses in Kani and compared their accounts with mobile phone footage and photographs collected by Myanmar Witness, a UK-based NGO that investigates human rights abuses in the country. The military government did not deny the allegations. The army has faced resistance from civilians since it seized control of the country, which is also called Burma. More than 1,400 civilians and protesters have been killed by Myanmar's security forces since the coup, according to the Assistance Association of Political Prisoners activist group. Some of them have taken up arms and formed civilian militia groups to fight back against the military. The killings in Kani are among the worst atrocities committed by the Myanmar military, which has a long history of human rights violations against ethnic minorities and pro-democracy activists. In 2017, the army launched a brutal crackdown on the Rohingya Muslim minority in Rakhine State, killing thousands of people and forcing more than 700,000 to flee to neighboring Bangladesh. The United Nations has accused the army of genocide for its actions against the Rohingya. The international community has condemned the violence and imposed sanctions on the military leaders and their businesses. The United States Embassy in Myanmar said it was appalled by the barbaric attack in Kaya State that killed at least 35 civilians on Christmas Eve. A senior United Nations official called for an immediate investigation into the incident so that perpetrators can be swiftly brought to justice. However, the military junta has shown no signs of relenting or restoring democracy. It has rejected calls for dialogue and mediation from regional and global powers. It has also blocked humanitarian aid and access to many areas affected by conflict and displacement. Thousands of Myanmar villagers are living under makeshift tents alongside a river that borders Thailand, fearful of returning to homes they said had been bombarded by military airstrikes. The people of Myanmar are facing an unprecedented humanitarian crisis as they struggle to survive under a brutal dictatorship that has shown no regard for their lives or dignity.